Preparation for the flood. So God said to Noah, I have decided to destroy all living creatures, for they have filled the earth with violence. Yes, I will wipe them all out along with the earth. Build a large boat from cypress wood and waterproof it with tar, inside and out. Then construct decks and stalls throughout its interior. Make the boat 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Leave an 18-inch opening below the roof all the way around the boat. Put the door on the side and build 3 decks inside the boat, lower, middle, and upper. Look, I am about to cover the earth with a flood that will destroy every living thing that breathes. Everything on earth will die, but I will confirm my covenant with you. So enter the boat, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring a pair of every kind of animal, a male and a female, into the boat with you to keep them alive during the flood. Pairs of every kind of bird and every kind of animal, and every kind of small animal that scurries along the ground, will come to you to be kept alive. And be sure to take on board enough food for your family and for all the animals. So Noah did everything exactly as God had commanded him. When everything was ready, the Lord said to Noah, Go into the boat with all your family, for among all the people of the earth, I can see that you alone are righteous. Take with you 7 pairs, male and female, of each animal I have approved for eating and for sacrifice, and take 1 pair of each of the others. Also take 7 pairs of every kind of bird. There must be a male and a female in each pair to ensure that all life will survive on the earth after the flood. 7 days from now I will make the rains pour down on the earth, and it will rain for 40 days and 40 nights until I have wiped from the earth all the living things I have created. So Noah did everything as the Lord commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the flood covered the earth. He went on board the boat to escape the flood, he and his wife and his sons and their wives. With them were all the various kinds of animals, those approved for eating and for sacrifice and those that were not, along with all the birds and the small animals that scurry along the ground. They entered the boat in pairs, male and female, just as God had commanded Noah. After 7 days, the waters of the flood came and covered the earth. Genesis 6, verses 13 to 7, verse 10. What lesson can we learn from this amazing account of early human history? Like Daniel, Noah is a prophet who predicts the end of the world. The Hebrew word for the ark, teva, Genesis 6, verse 14, is the same rare Egyptian loanword that was used for the ark, in which the infant Moses was hidden, who was preserved in order to save Israel from Egypt. Exodus 2, verse 3. Also, some have seen in the general structure of the ark parallels to the Ark of the Tabernacle, Exodus 25, verse 10. Just as the Ark of the Flood will permit the survival of humankind, so the Ark of the Covenant, a sign of God's presence in the midst of his people, Exodus 25, verse 22, points to God's work of salvation for his people. The phrase, Noah did everything as the Lord commanded him, Genesis 6, verse 22, concludes the preparatory section. The verb asa, did, referring to Noah's action, responds to the verb asa, make, in God's command, which started the section, Genesis 6, verse 14, and is repeated 5 times, Genesis 6, verses 14 to 16. This echo between God's command and Noah's response suggests Noah's absolute obedience to what God had told him to do, to asa. It is also interesting that this phrase is also used in the context of the building of the Ark of the Covenant, Exodus 39, verses 32 and 42, and Exodus 40, verse 16. God gave Noah the exact dimensions of the ark and explicit directions in regard to its construction in every particular. Human wisdom could not have devised a structure of so great strength and durability. God was the designer and Noah the master builder. Again, the parallel between the 2 arks reaffirms their common redemptive function. Noah's obedience is thus described as a part of God's plan of salvation. Noah was saved simply because he had that faith to do what God commanded him to do. See Hebrews 11, verse 7. He was an early example of a faith that manifests itself in obedience, the only kind of faith that matters. James chapter 2, verse 20. In short, though Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord, Genesis 6, verse 8, it was in response to this grace already given him that Noah acted faithfully and obediently to God's commands. Isn't that how it should be with all of us? And God did not spare the ancient world, except for Noah and the 7 others in his family. Noah warned the world of God's righteous judgment. So God protected Noah when he destroyed the world of ungodly people with a vast flood. Later, God condemned the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah and turned them into heaps of ashes. He made them an example of what will happen to ungodly people. But God also rescued Lot out of Sodom because he was a righteous man who was sick of the shameful immorality of the wicked people around him. Yes, Lot was a righteous man who was tormented in his soul by the wickedness he saw and heard day after day. So you see, the Lord knows how to rescue godly people from their trials, even while keeping the wicked under punishment until the day of final judgment. 2 Peter 2 verse 5-9. Why was only Noah's family saved? What lesson can we learn from the Noah story regarding our role in warning the world about coming judgment? More than 100 years before the flood, the Lord sent an angel to faithful Noah to make known to him that he would no longer have mercy upon the corrupt race, but he would not have them ignorant of his design. He would instruct Noah and make him a faithful preacher to warn the world of its coming destruction, that the inhabitants of the earth might be left without excuse. Noah was to preach to the people, and also to prepare an ark, as God should direct him for the saving of himself and family. He was not only to preach, but his example in building the ark was to convince all that he believed what he preached. Noah and his family were not alone in fearing and obeying God. But Noah was the most pious and holy of any upon the earth, and was the one whose life God preserved to carry out his will in building the ark and warning the world of its coming doom. Noah stood like a rock amid the tempest. He was surrounded by every species of wickedness and moral corruption. But amid popular contempt and ridicule, amid universal wickedness and disobedience, he distinguished himself by his holy integrity and unwavering faithfulness. While the world around him were disregarding God and were indulging in all manner of extravagant dissipation, which led to violence and crimes of every kind, the faithful preacher of righteousness declared to that generation that a flood of water was to deluge the world because of the unsurpassed wickedness of its inhabitants. He warned them to repent and believe and find refuge in the ark. A power attended his words, for it was the voice of God to man through his servant. Connection with God made him strong in the strength of infinite power, while for 120 years his solemn warning voice fell upon the ears of the men of that generation in regard to events which, so far as human wisdom could judge, seemed impossible. How simple and childlike, amid the unbelief of a scoffing world, was the faith of Noah. He gave to the world an example of believing just what God said. It is a fearful thing to treat lightly the truth which has convinced our understanding and touched our hearts. We cannot with impunity reject the warnings which God in mercy sends us. A message was sent from heaven to the world in Noah's day, and the salvation of men depended upon the manner in which they treated that message. Because they rejected the warning, the Spirit of God was withdrawn from the sinful race, and they perished in the waters of the flood. Looking down to the last days, the same infinite power declares, concerning those who received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. For this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. As they reject the teachings of his word, God withdraws his Spirit and leaves them to the deceptions which they love.